Maria walked across the little hallway of her in-laws' elderly house, her bare feet squeaking in the kitchen. Through the dirty window above the sink, morning sunlight spilled across the chipped linoleum floor, creating a golden haze. The air smelled burnt and bitter coffee, mixed with the subtle aroma of lemon dish soap and eggs gently cooking on the pan. Early, just 6:30, the rest of the house was still waking. Maria moved deliberately, hands trained, motions silent. Her old Samsung phone, with a little broken corner, lay sloppily against a salt jar on the windowsill. Behind it to hold the angle was a folded dish towel. There was no tripod or ring light. It faced the kitchen table, where a little plate of bread, some strawberries, and a perfectly round boiled egg waited. Her 6-year-old son Noah colored on the back of an old shopping receipt while seated swinging his feet. His clothes were ragged and his hair was still wild from sleep. Maria adored this part of the morning, the silence, the intimacy, the sense that for a few period nothing else in the world mattered but feeding him, loving him, keeping him safe. She responded gently, "Good morning, sweetie," then turned to answer the phone. Her voice was low, soothing, with a warmth that somehow did not dissipate even after tiredness. "Today we are having a basic breakfast, like always, but I am adding a little extra love to it." She expected no one to pick up those words. Not rather. Mostly for Noah, something he could look back on when he was older. The videos were for herself. Evidence that his mother had tried regardless of how tight money was or how chilly the house felt occasionally. Every day she had shown up. The corridor resonated with crisp, determined footfall suddenly. "Vanessa." Maria tightened. Her sister-in-law arrived in the kitchen wearing tight-fitting jacket and high-waisted trousers. Her iced coffee was held like a prop in some Instagram video. Her eyes first fixed the phone, then Maria, then the dish. She laughed and replied, "You've got to be kidding me," flicking her ponytail back. "Filming eggs lately? What's next? Toast lessons for housewives in desperation?" Maria paid no attention to her. She turned back toward the burner and gently took off the pot. She could listen to the eye roll behind her. "You know, people post real stuff online," Vanessa said while leaning against the counter and crossing her arms. "This not in 2010. Who wants to see some impoverished widows prepare breakfast in a house owned by a deceased man?" Maria's hand clenched around the ladle. She ignored it. The only sound was quiet egg hiss against chilly plate. Then came another voice, Frank, the house patriarch, seated in his normal position next to the rear window with a newspaper and a cup of black coffee. His voice, as usual, communicated judgment veiled in apathy. "Phones have replaced pride these days," he said quietly. "She should spend more time thinking out how not to mooch off this family than on recording." Maria closed her eyes half a second ago. She had discovered long ago how to conceal tears behind them. Mark's death 3 years ago was 3 years ago. One of the delivery trucks ran a red light. She was packing his lunch 1 minute, then, sirens started. Nothing then. Her in-laws had let her stay, but under the unwritten rule that she and Noah were ghosts paid for by their pity. Maria kept to herself, cleaned, cooked, and organized. She refused to ask for money. Said nothing about complaining. She had to endure the contempt alone, but her sole wish was for Noah to grow up with some sense of family. Maria lay on the twin mattress in the attic bedroom that evening after tucking Noah in and edited the video on her phone. She cut out the scene where Vanessa made fun of her, turned on quiet music over the scene where Noah grinned with teeth stained with strawberries, and posted the 56-second footage. She had nothing expected. She wrote under the heading, "Just a mom making breakfast for her boy." The house had returned to its regular rhythm by morning, sharp shoes on tile, judgment in eyes, quiet around the breakfast table. Maria was cleaning dishes at the sink when Vanessa entered and smugly scrolled her phone. "Congratulations," she murmured, raising the screen. 23 points of view. Mostly definitely, at least 10 came from me. Welcome. Maria, not looking up, flashed a quick smile. That evening she recorded once more. The next is then. Cooked eggs. Cheese grilled on fire. Noah fell to sleep, a soft-spoken bedtime narrative murmured underfoot. She knew only that someone might be observing, not who exactly. And that was sufficient as well. 3 days later her phone buzzed as she was making breakfast. She picked it up, cleaned her hands, and stared. 20-430 views. Her heart stuttered as she blinked. The most often mentioned comment was, "Your video brought tears to me. Breakfast used to be made for me by my mother in like manner before she went." "Thank you." Maria gasped. Her fingertips stroked the screen as though it were a picture she had not expected to come upon once more. Though the kitchen around her stayed the same peeling wallpaper, same flickering light bulb, something inside her changed. She saw for the first time in a long time. She still had the phone in hand when Joan arrived. Her mother-in-law paused midway, peering suspiciously. "What is happening on?" Her tone was harsh as she asked. Maria turned slowly, her lips ghostly smiling. "Someone saw something worth remembering in this kitchen." Joan said nothing. 2 days later, someone tipped her $5 during a silent morning livestream. A little notice showing from Rachel, "Thank you for making mornings feel warm again," appeared on the screen. Maria chokes. The camera caught the moment she covered her lips, eyes wide and moist, voice shaking. I don't know what to say. "Thank you, whatever your name is." She went over that evening over and over. Not out of conceit, but rather because it reminded her she was not invisible. Vanessa slammed the cabinet below and mumbled to nobody especially, "Guess crying online pays now." Maria ignored her. She was already arranging the brunch for tomorrow. Maria sat next to Noah on the fading duvet that covered their little bed that evening as dusk descended and cicadas started their nightly chorus outside the attic window. His tongue pointing precisely, he was sketching on scrap printer paper with crayons. "Sweetheart, what are you creating here?" She gently brushed his hair back. Noah displayed his image. It featured a stick-figure woman with long hair and a fry pan positioned in front of a twisted stove. Beside her stood a small child beaming broadly. Above them, in faltering handwriting, "My MOM is a hero." Maria stopped momentarily, not knowing how to breathe. The image fell short of perfection. Still, it was genuine. Their property was this. "I love it," she said softly. "More than anything." Noah grinned and slanted himself against her side. "Mom, I enjoy your talking on your videos. Your voice is low. People feel better, then, from it." Maria nodded and drank down the lump in her throat. "I hope so, baby." The rest of the home stayed the same outside the door and down the squeaking stairs. Icy looks. Closed perspectives. But something had changed here, in the small upstairs room with the flickering nightlight and child's drawing pinned to the wall. She drew Noah in near and closed her eyes. Not exactly, they hadn't seen her yet. Still, the world had begun to change. She assured herself, then, that this was simply the start. Maria woke to see hundreds of messages and comments pouring into her inbox after her little video got very emotional. Her phone ran non-stop with alerts. She considered it momentarily as possibly a mistake. Not, though. "Thanks for reminding me how strong quiet love is," one woman said. "Today, my daughter and I cooked your grilled cheese." Another claimed it tasted like safety. And then arrived the one Maria halted in her tracks for. "2 months ago, my husband went from here. I've gone numb. Still, seeing you love your son inspired me to try once more. Thank you. Maria silently fixed her gaze on the TV. She held the antique phone gently, as though it too could sense the weight of those words. Tears obscured her eyes. They were not from sadness but from something else totally. Objective. She was not wearing any makeup. Not even a well-chosen kitchen. Simple, a cracked phone and a boiling pot. And somehow it had found people. She tenderly combed Noah's hair while she loaded cereal into a bowl. "Hey, baby," she remarked gently. "Looks like right now a few more people are having breakfast with us." Noah gave a smile. "Does our kitchen appeal to them?" Maria laughed right through her nose. "I believe they enjoy our particular style of loving." Later that afternoon, Maria was hanging laundry in the backyard when Vanessa rushed out the rear door carrying a sheet of printer paper. Her heels cut like knives on the lush grass. "See this?" She waved it quickly. "People are saying this about you here." Maria turned gently. On the page was a screen grab of the remark from the woman whose husband had gone. Vanessa had made yellow highlights of it. She snipped, "You're turning our family's name into an online pity party. You wish for foreigners believing we are the terrible guys?" Maria spoke in a steady tone. "I never specifically mentioned your name. Or this house." Vanessa laughed scornfully. "You were not obliged, of course. People interpret things between the lines." "Maria, I'm uncomfortable when colleagues wonder whether I'm connected to the sad breakfast widow." Maria stopped her hand at a clothesbin. "Then avoid watching." Vanessa's eyes contracted. "You are a guest in here. Don't overlook that." Maria said not anything. She wasn't necessary. Silence seemed more powerful than shouting for once. Still, the storm was only getting ready. Dinner that evening was less than normal, but the tension was thick enough to spread like butter. Maria sat at the far end of the table, Noah next her chewing on a cookie. Joan passed the green beans grinning too tightly to be real. Frank seldom spoke at all. But his quiet was heavy, not apathetic tonight. Like he was counting her every breath, waiting for her to fall. Maria grabbed the mashed potatoes just as Joan started to cough. She said lightly, "I spoke to Linda today. From the chapel." She recalled seeing something yours online. Maria did not respond soon away. Her hands stopped midway in air. "She was concerned," Joan said, voice slow and thoughtful. "Said it seemed like someone in our house captured on camera was crying. Like perhaps they weren't being looked after." Maria blinked then dropped the spoon. Joan's voice grew stricter. "This is working if this is your concept of developing sympathy. But not as you might believe." Vanessa grinned broadly across the table. Again, Maria responded gently, "I didn't name anyone." "But you drew a picture," Joan said. "And it's beginning to count how others perceive us." "Maria, you are drawing attention here. Not the sort we wish for." Maria nodded slowly, her face invisible. She sat on the attic floor that evening, fixed on the small ring of light her phone screen created in darkness. Her hands flew over the Go Live button. She was hesitant. She then knocked it out. The screen flashed on. One viewer, 6:27, 114 on the counter. She whispered gently, the camera facing her kitchen, "Hi everyone. We're back for still another breakfast prep. Today nothing special, just scrambled eggs and apple slices. But this morning I want to address fear." Her voice calm as she cracked an egg. Sometimes you live somewhere you feel little. Not because you are, but rather because some people enjoy you better that way. She omitted names. She was not obliged, of course. The remarks came quickly. Maria, you are doing really well. This kitchen reminds me of home. We hear you. Then, darkness. The screen turned black. Maria considered it the app breaking for a moment. Then she heard it. The breaker was softly clicking mechanically as it was flipped. Underneath. She stopped in the darkness, phone screen fading into silent. Noah whirled in his sleep in the corner. Maria got her flashlight and swallowed the constriction in her throat. 5 minutes later she was seated outside under the oak tree in the backyard, covered in a shawl, her phone on her knee streaming back on. Hey again, she answered, her voice a whisper but forceful. I'm sorry about the disturbance. Power outage. Still here, though, is the sky. Therefore, are we? The stars spread out far behind her. The remarks burst forth. She returned? She is steel, this woman says. I am crying. Who else does this? She is so amazing. 20-24 hours later, the clip received over 800,000 views. Maria lacked a smile motivated by pride. She grinned as she had stayed gentle while under pressure from the world to make her tough. And someplace deep inside, a voice she had not heard in years returned. I am not the person people believe I am. I am more. Form. Maria's email was full the following morning. Companies she had never heard of were willing to deliver her appliances. One podcaster asked for a visit. Many mothers from all throughout the nation had messaged her to say thanks rather than to ask for recipes. To remind them, they were not by themselves. For depicting what dignity in peaceful opposition looked like. She had no idea how to answer all of them. She answered then the only way she knew how. She videotaped once more. No revisions. Not using filters. Just her hands cutting apples while Noah was seated at the table humming to himself. He said, "Are we famous now?" once looking up. Maria turned to grin. I'm not sure, darling. Perhaps just a little. Cool, he remarked with a smile. Could I still eat with my fingers? She chuckled, genuine but not guarded. Always. That evening, they resumed their outdoor seating. The air fragrant with summer, the stars above them crisp and clear. Maria laid Noah under a blanket and rested her cheek against his head. The house behind them didn't really matter for once. The rulings. The dishonesty. Circuit breakers clicking here and here. All she felt was the steady pulse of her son's heart against her side, and the silent knowledge that transformation had already started. I think you're a superhero, Mom, Noah yawned and mumbled. Maria planted a kiss on his head top. She said softly, No. I'm just a mom with a phone and a purpose. She turned to face the heavens. She would record once again tomorrow. They could try to stop her once more tomorrow. Tonight, though, she slept. And the globe continued to watch. Maria never dreamed of a video under a tree chatting to strangers by starlight changing her life path. Yes, though. 2 days following her late-night webcast becoming viral, an Atlanta producer from a regional morning program contacted her by email. We would be happy to have you visit, the note said. Just a basic part discussing parenthood, warmth, and how the internet discovered your kitchen. Maria read the email twice, then a third time. The terms fell short rather precisely. She felt as like she was hovering somewhere outside her body, observing a version of herself she did not know, not the quiet widow washing laundry in silence, but someone the world suddenly wanted to hear. Noah squealed at her, telling him, "Are you scheduled to appear on TV? Do I have to leave?" She planted a kiss on his forehead. "Maybe another time, dear." Not everyone in the house, meanwhile, was happy. Frank gently folded his newspaper at supper and deliberately cleared his throat in that dark manner. He said, not looking up, "Got wind you've been invited to speak on TV. Are you intending to take it?" Maria put down her fork. "I'm considering it." Joan started to pat her lips. "You are going to bring this family onto national television?" Maria spoke in a quiet voice. "They inquired not of this family. About my films, they inquired. My efforts." Vanessa laughed, a brief, piercing chuckle. "What activity?" "You cry on video while cutting apples." Joan leaned forward. "You might consider this to be benign. Reputations, nevertheless, Maria, are important. The community calls this residence names." Maria raised her eyes. "And I also go by a name." Frank's voice slowed down. "You visit our house on that show, acting as a visitor. Not in line with it either. Remember, someone else is covering your head with a roof." Maria stayed silent. She nodded just. Inside, though, something broke precisely, like the last snap of a wishbone when both hands draw with identical force. Maria sat by herself in the attic that evening with her phone glowing on her lap. Still open was the invitation email. She went back over it, fingers dancing over the respond button. She then nodded yes. She would travel. The house seemed colder the following day. Joan now made direct comments rather than passive ones. She said as she passed Maria in the hall, "Don't expect us to tune in. We do not dabble in fantasies." Vanessa grew quiet at the same time. "Not too noisy." Maria sensed something developing, that odd quiet before a storm. Arriving 48 hours later, it showed us screenshots. On Facebook, a well-known gossip page had a discussion headed, "That breakfast mom asked? You ought to see her in real life." It featured hazy pictures of Maria's attic chamber, a quotation supposedly from a family source, and worst of all, a bogus allegation she was milking widowhood for sympathy. Maria watched the screen in fear. She had no need to conjecture who leaked it. Vanessa waltzed into the kitchen that evening carrying her phone and was getting ready dinner. "Public's turning fast," she observed coolly. "Maybe this famous thing is not so simple, huh?" Maria's silence. She wasn't able. Her throat tightened with guilt and shame as well as something else completely, clarity. Without hashtags, she entered onto TikTok and filmed a 1-minute video. Exactly her face. "I share a residence with someone else. I use a cracked phone when filming. I use a second-hand pan while cooking. But single word I have ever written online has come true. If you find something in me, that's because I never lied about the battle." She called no one out specifically. Her silence on the source, though, said volumes. And then something quite unusual occurred. The comments poured in. Not nasty ones, rather, supporting ones. "Where you live is not important to us. We are interested in your loving style. Online, you are the most honest voice available. Let jealous individuals not silence you." Her follower count doubled overnight. Regarding the TV section as well, it drew more than 1 million spectators. Maria stood next to the host in a soft yellow dress, her hands quivering but her voice as glass clear. She included Noah. Regarding basic food. About not giving up even if you are invisible. The footage trended over several days. Then arrived the email that changed everything, a small studio space in town where she could professionally film and a kitchenware company offering her a compensated partnership. Maria held it in shaking hands. Her breath caught. She had never ventured to dream of a dream inquiring whether she wanted the key. But Joan cornered her in the kitchen before she could say yes. She continued, voice tight, "You're not dragging this house down with you. Either you find another roof or you end the circus now." Maria froze quite precisely. She then gracefully reached for a notepad and penned 5 words. "Thanks for the start." She packed one little bag, stuck the note to the refrigerator, and headed off. She did not bang a door. She turned away from looking back. She simply moved forward. Maria posted her debut video from the new studio location the following day. Along with a borrowed stove and soft white walls, it had a solitary potted plant next to the counter. Noah stood next to her clutching the egg whisk. Maria grinned and continued, "Today we are once more having breakfast. Like we typically do. But this time, that in our own kitchen." The camera ran. Also listening on the internet was. Maria stayed on a fold-out mattress in the corner of her new apartment that evening. Noah snuggled up next to her, deep sleeping. Though the studio had little, no drapes, no appropriate table yet, it was silent. And it was there. The only sound was the refrigerator hum. Outside, the streetlights shone through the blinds. Maria looked up at the ceiling, hands clasped over her stomach, heart pounding in the quiet. She ought to have become terrified. She lacked, nevertheless. She was light. It went beyond simply running from criticism. It had to do with choosing herself. Not loud. Not fiercely. Totally, but. Her thoughts veered to the note she left behind. "I appreciate the start. It isn't sarcasm. It was fact. That house and that suffering had molded her. But her finale was not this." She was taken from her ideas by a quiet rustle. Half drowsy, Noah whispered, "Mom, please?" She spun. "I'm here." He stretched forward, hand warm on hers. "I find this house more appealing." Maria gave a smile. "Me too." She yawned. "Are you not terrified?" She halted. "I am. But not of solitude." She turned to check the phone charging next to her. Its screen was flashing fresh messages. Not alone these days. Not for the first time, but with fresh clarity, she said to herself before shutting her eyes. "I am not the person they described. One breakfast at a time, I am what I have created." She then slipped off to sleep, aware that the video tomorrow would start with the same line. "Good morning. Allow me to prepare something basic. Something bursting with love." And the earth would show up once more to listen. Maria's new kitchen lacked glittering appliances and granite counters. Still, it had minimal impact. Also silent. And friendly. And it featured her as well. Pancake mornings, leftover makeovers, bedtime apple slices, the basic videos persisted. A whisper had developed into a chat, then a chorus. Now tuned in for her daily postings are hundreds of thousands. Not for show value or shock value but for peace. For something authentic. Notices brands. Fans started to arrange. Even a group of mothers created a hashtag #CookLikeMaria. Her material no longer went viral. It had a basic quality. After that, they arrived. Maria looked up mid-recording one Tuesday morning, sun high and sharp through the studio glass door, and noticed two figures outside. Joan. Then Vanessa. Maria blinked. Her form stopped. Their last conversation was several weeks ago. Not since she left carrying her son and one bag. Now they were, dressed, positioned, camera-ready. Vanessa put on makeup. Joan had her Sunday pearls on. And they had smiles on their faces. Maria's phone was still on recording. She moved to open the door cautiously. "Morning," Joan answered softly, like though she were stopping by for tea. "We were in the local area. Thought we would see how our girl was doing." Vanessa followed in, waving at the phone on its stand. "You are alive?" "Excellent." We could utter a few words at least. "Everyone ought to be really proud of you." Maria uttered not a word. She moved aside to allow them in. She understood some stories don't call for conflict. They come right out. Joan moved slowly throughout the studio, peering at the small shelves and utensils as though she were viewing a model home. She murmured somewhat under her breath, "It's smaller than I expected. But beautiful." Vanessa turned her body like a news anchor and ran a straight line for the camera. "This kitchen, people, is where our Maria does magic. We were sure she had it in her." "Yes, Mom." Joan graced firmly. "She has always been really creative." Maria stood, arms crossed close to the sink. Streaming remarks started to fly in. "Is that her mother-in-law? The one from before? Now they seem proud? What are their activities there?" Vanessa carried on, relentless. "We really find great delight in the platform she created. Mom, we always told her, right? Not we, Mom. She ought to experiment with creative cuisine projects." Maria's fingers curled just barely on the counter. She wanted to laugh, but not in light-hearted manner. In wonder at how deftly the revisionist past had been created. She let them have their conversations. She permitted the river to flow. "Eyes still fixed on the lens," Vanessa said. "And perhaps one day we will return and cook together. Like a family recipe, you know." Regarding the enthusiasts. Maria moved forward, voice gentle but harsh. "Vanessa, what dish would that call for? The one when you cut the power halfway through the live stream?" Like a towel, the silence ripped across the space. Vanessa halted. Joan opened her mouth to cough. "We don't need to go back over." Maria shifted to face the camera. "My kitchen is this one." Silence, not applause, created this place. "I cook here since nobody clapped when I shed tears. As I got back up, everybody clapped." She then quietly stopped the livestream. Still, it was not finished. Vanessa started behind the scenes, contacting some of Maria's brand partners, presenting herself as part of the original journey, and proposing to feature in joint films. She applied the family-based narrative concept. On the internet, though, memories abound. Fans uploaded side-by-sides, screenshots, archived comments. Vanessa teasing Maria with her recent false compliments on TikTok was pieced together. As usual, the video went viral. Maria remained calm. She answered with less than wrath. Rather, she uploaded a video of herself carrying an old dish towel, the one Noah carried like a blanket when he was young. She added, "I built something real," very modestly. And real does not call for spin. The sponsors stayed in. 3 more joined, in fact. Maria, though, showed no enthusiasm for writing the drama. She came up with still another concept. Something she would not be able to develop. Maria broke something fresh on her channel the next week. It was hardly a brand name bargain. It had nothing to do with a product. It seemed to be an invitation. Starting next month, she remarked in a low, steady voice. Every Sunday, I will be opening this kitchen one mother at a time. Like me, just average women who want to enjoy a meal and a memory. Her name for it was the Table Series. Her email was overflowing in a few hours. Single women. Women who have migrated. Grandmothers tending to their grandchildren. Every letter featured a recipe as well as a narrative. Maria picked the first guest using the same deliberate language she used. Originally a nurse who had lost her career during the epidemic, Adrienne was now homeschooling 2 boys. She brought a sweet potato biscuit recipe and a low chuckle that made Maria think of warmth on wet days. 2 million views of that program came in a week. Maria sensed this was the start of something greater even if she kept quiet about it. Her kitchen served more than only background. One door. After filming, one evening she sat on the studio floor with Noah sorting groceries. He asked suddenly, looking up quickly. Do you suppose Dad would be pleased of you? Maria's hands halted. The inquiry hovered in the air. She stared at her kid, his sincere eyes, the way he asked for truth rather than comfort. She responded gently, I think he would be happy we persisted. We continued like this. That from practically nothing we created something. Noah grinned. You created something rather large. Maria ran her hands over his hair. We did, sweetie. Indeed. She burned a candle on the counter that evening. Not for content. Not for opinions here. Especially for silence. From outside, the sky was velvet. Inside the studio shone the light of a lady no more seeking validation but rather just being. She turned off the video camera. The kitchen grew silent. The narrative was still to be written, though. Another woman would visit tomorrow. She is a mother. There would also be another narrative starting here. Maria would also be there, ready to listen, with 2 dishes on a warm stove. Maria's kitchen had been highlighted in 3 local newspapers, 2 national mom blogs, and, to her startled amazement, a 6-page spread in a women's lifestyle magazine by the end of summer. The title was With Widow to Wonder, How One Mom Built a Movement with a Stove and a Story. Maria hardly recognized herself in the glossy pictures, not because they altered her appearance but more because they caught something she had never seen reflected back before: assurance. Balance. Durability. Her first inclination was to turn down the offer to speak at the Rising Voices Women's Summit in Nashville. She whispered loudly, I'm not a speaker. Then Noah peeked his head into the room with a toy microphone and remarked, Mom, you interact daily with people. You simply don't show on a glittering stage. She then answered yes. Together, they boarded the bus, Maria's nerves barely contained under her pleasant smile and a little luggage. Not out of anxiety but rather out of wonder, she grabbed Noah's hand so tightly that her knuckles hurt. Women in blazers, poets in heels, campaigners with eyes like fire buzzed in the green room. Maria brought a lemon loaf she had made early, sliced into squares with napkins arranged beside her, and wore her best thrifted clothing. 2 apiece were consumed by people. You created this? One woman asked, incredulous. Maria nodded, a small hesitant gesture. Then you already said more than half of us could ever have. She burst out laughing at that. Her knees shook, though, as showtime approached and her name showed on the screen behind stage. She had spun tales in kitchens. Whispered them. Created recipes using these folded. She now would say them out. Maria stood behind the curtains and used white-knuckled fingers to grab the podium edge. A little montage featuring footage from her table series, images of her studio, the candlelit night with Noah, even a line from her famous live stream, played on the big screen overhead. I cook here since nobody clapped when I shed tears. They clapped when I got back up. The crowd murmured in understanding. Then there was applause. Maria flashed quickly. In months she had not shed tears. But now the tears arrived, of relief rather than of hurt. Her introduction by the host was respectful. The speaker scheduled for today reminds us that a revolution does not always roar. Sometimes it simmers, under the hands of a mother preparing breakfast. Maria saw Noah in the first row, beaming and legs too short to touch the floor as she walked onto the stage. Finally, something else. Stiff in a linen jacket, 3 rows behind him seated Joan. Her mouth formed a straight line. Her eyes were invisible. Maria stopped feeling. Simply for a moment. She still kept on walking, though. She turned to face the microphone. Paced a breath. "Hi," she said with a firm voice. "Maria, this is it. I am not in cooking. I am not a corporate woman. I am not especially orderly either." Funny laughter. "I'm just a mom with a cracked phone, a stubborn heart, and a kid who loves toast with strawberries." The audience mellowed. Slanted in. Maria kept going. "For a long time, even in my own house, I was invisible. I considered silence to be modest. Silence, I believed, equated with failure." She turned her whole attention to Joan. "But now I understand, stillness is where power first blossoms." And kitchens? Revolution began in kitchens. The applause started. Whispering backstage, a staff member said, "You're trending already." Maria was not glancing at her phone, though. She was staring at Noah, with his wonder-filled eyes. And perhaps, just maybe, at the woman 3 rows behind him, whose hand had at last unclosed from her bag. Geometry. That same evening Vanessa uploaded her first cooking journey video across town. She had hired a photographer, leased a contemporary kitchen, and accessioned a well-chosen apron. Her voice was flat, the lighting austere, and the comments nasty. "This feels forced. Trying too hard. Bring back the actual mother." The video never got over 2,000 views. Maria left no comment. She did not revel in it. She just cooked the next day as usual. Formation. Her speech resumed back at the top. "I used to believe influence was for people with perfect homes, loud voices, and clean pasts," Maria added. "But maybe impact begins when someone says, 'I see you,' and we decide to remain noticed." She stops. "Your strength is not in how loud you are." Every woman who has been told she is too quiet, too dirty, too sensitive. "It's in how profoundly you love in spite of cacophony." Half the room was in tears by the time she turned off. On their feet was the other half. Maria walked down gently. Joan stayed in her seat, her eyes were watery. "That is sufficient." Form. Maria and Noah strolled hand in hand along a quiet Nashville street that evening, passing cafes illuminated with fairy lights and buskers performing classic soul tunes. "You did good," Noah remarked. Maria let out a smile. "You believe so?" He agreed. They all clapped. She ran her hand over his. "I did not do it for the claps." "I know," he said. "You done it for us." They saw Maria's portrait framed next to the words after passing a storefront displaying cookbooks. The revolution in her kitchen. Her stop was intentional. Entered it. then started walking. Because knowledge already exists in the world. Still, she was only getting started.